Welcome to Revenge Chronicles. Welcome back to another powerful story from our community. Whether you're a long-time subscriber or joining us for the first time, these are real accounts of people who found the courage to break free from toxic situations. Today's story contains some difficult themes, but stick with us, the ending might just restore your faith in justice. You won't believe what happens when a grieving mother decides enough is enough. I never thought I'd be the type of person to destroy a family. But then again, I never thought my in-laws would steal money meant to save my dying child either. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I went from being the grateful poor daughter-in-law to the woman who brought down the Morrison family empire. It's been 3 years since it happened, and I still wake up some mornings wondering if it was all a nightmare. But then I look at the framed photo on my desk, the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Sarah Chen Memorial Shelter, and I know it was all worth it. Let me start from the beginning, back when I still believed family meant something. I married David Morrison when I was 23, fresh out of community college with a nursing degree and drowning in student loans. David was everything I thought I wanted: handsome, from a wealthy family, and he seemed to genuinely love me despite our different backgrounds. His family owned Morrison Development, a successful real estate company that had been building luxury homes in our city for 30 years. The red flags started during our engagement. David's mother, Patricia Morrison, made it crystal clear that she thought her son was marrying beneath him. She'd introduce me as David's little nurse friend even after we were engaged. His father, Robert, was more subtle but equally dismissive. They'd have family dinners at expensive restaurants and then act surprised when I couldn't afford to split the check equally. "Oh, sweetie, we forgot you're still paying off those student loans," Patricia would say with fake sympathy. "Don't worry, we'll cover you this time." But David defended me, or so I thought. "Mom, Sarah's working her way through life honestly. There's nothing wrong with that." I was so grateful for those small defenses that I overlooked how he never actually stood up to them when it really mattered. After we married, things got worse. We lived in a small apartment because it was all we could afford on my nursing salary and David's entry-level position at his father's company. Patricia would visit unannounced and comment on everything: the second-hand furniture, the cheap dinnerware, the fact that I clipped coupons. "David, honey, you know there's always room for you at home if this little experiment doesn't work out," she'd say right in front of me. But I tried to win them over. God, how hard I tried. I worked double shifts to help David pay for the expensive suits his father insisted he needed for work. I used my nursing skills to care for Robert when he had his heart attack, staying up all night monitoring his medications while Patricia got her beauty sleep. I organized family gatherings, remembering everyone's birthdays, sending thoughtful gifts we couldn't afford. Nothing was ever enough. Then I got pregnant. For a brief, shining moment, I thought everything would change. Surely they'd accept me now that I was carrying their grandchild. David was over the moon, already planning the nursery and talking about family traditions he wanted to pass down. But at our 20-week ultrasound, everything changed. "I'm sorry," the doctor said quietly, "but there's a problem with the baby's heart." Sarah, we'd already decided on the name, had a severe congenital heart defect. She would need multiple surgeries, starting immediately after birth. The doctor estimated the total cost could reach $500,000, even with insurance. I remember sitting in that sterile room, holding David's hand while the doctor explained surgical options and survival rates. My mind was reeling, but one thought cut through everything else: we would do whatever it took to save our baby. When we told David's parents, their reaction told me everything I needed to know about where I really stood in this family. $500,000. Robert's face had gone pale. "David, you need to be realistic about this. The prognosis isn't even good." "What are you saying?" David's voice was shaky. Patricia put her hand on her son's shoulder. "Sweetheart, sometimes these things happen for a reason. You're young. You can have other children. Healthy children." I felt like I'd been slapped. "This is your granddaughter we are talking about." "Sarah dear," Patricia's voice dripped with false kindness, "I know this is emotional for you, but you have to think practically. That kind of money could bankrupt the family. And even if the surgeries work, what kind of life would the poor thing have?" That night, David and I made a pact. We would save Sarah no matter what. We started researching the best pediatric cardiac surgeons, getting second opinions, preparing for the fight of our lives. I was put on bed rest at 32 weeks due to complications. That's when David's grandmother, Eleanor Morrison, came to visit me. She was the family matriarch, 91 years old and sharp as a tack. Unlike the rest of the family, she'd always been kind to me. "Sarah, honey," she said, holding my hand, "I want you to know that when the time comes, there will be money for little Sarah's surgeries." I started crying. Finally, someone in this family understood what our baby meant. "Eleanor, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me. Family takes care of family. I've already spoken to my lawyer about setting up a medical trust fund. Robert doesn't know yet, but I'm putting in $200,000 to start, and I'm arranging for the rest to be available as needed." For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. Sarah was born at 36 weeks, tiny and perfect except for her heart. The first surgery was scheduled for when she was 3 days old. I remember holding her in the NICU, promising her that we'd fight for her, that she was loved, that she was worth everything. The morning of the surgery, David went to his grandmother's lawyer to access the medical fund. He came back white as a sheet. "The account is empty," he said quietly. "The money's gone." I couldn't process what he was saying. "What do you mean gone?" "My father had himself added as a co-trustee. He moved the money yesterday." I felt the world tilt. "Where did it go?" "Into the company." Dad said Grandma Eleanor was having mental health issues and making irresponsible financial decisions. He said he was protecting her assets. I ran to the NICU where Robert and Patricia were standing outside Sarah's room. They saw me coming and Robert actually stepped forward like he was ready for a fight. "How dare you!" I screamed, not caring that we were in a hospital. "That money was for Sarah." "Lower your voice," Patricia hissed. "You're causing a scene. That was Eleanor's money to give." "Sarah," Robert's voice was cold, "my mother is 91 years old. She's not thinking clearly. Someone has to protect her from making decisions she'll regret. The only decision she'll regret is trusting you." "The money is being used to secure the family's future," Patricia added. "David has a promotion coming up. We're expanding the business. This is an investment in all our futures." "What about Sarah's future?" Robert looked me straight in the eye. "Sarah, sometimes we have to make hard choices. That money could help David build a life where he can provide for a healthy family someday." I couldn't speak. They weren't talking about my baby like she was already dead, they were planning for their future without her. The surgery was postponed while we scrambled to find funding. I called every charity, applied for every grant, started a GoFundMe page that raised $12,000. It wasn't enough. Sarah lived for 8 days. 8 days of watching her struggle to breathe, of begging doctors to please try something, anything, while knowing that the money that could have saved her was sitting in Robert Morrison's business account, funding his expansion plans. She died on a Tuesday morning while I was holding her. David was getting coffee and missed it. I was alone with her when her heart finally gave up fighting. The funeral was small. The Morrisons attended, dressed in black, playing the part of grieving grandparents. Patricia even cried, real tears that I'm sure she thought made her look sympathetic. Robert gave a speech about how little Sarah was too pure for this world. I sat there holding the funeral program with her tiny picture, listening to them talk about God's plan and how she was in a better place, and something inside me crystallized into pure, cold rage. After the service, Eleanor approached me. She looked ancient, broken. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what Robert had done until after." She couldn't finish. "I know," I whispered. "It's not your fault. I've changed my will," she said quietly. "Everything goes to you now. Not David, not the company. You. It's the least I can do." I stared at her. Eleanor Morrison was worth approximately $12 million. "Eleanor, I can't." "Yes, you can. And you will. Because I know you'll do something good with it. Something Robert never would." She died 6 weeks later, peacefully in her sleep. At the reading of her will, the Morrison family discovered that their expected inheritance had been left entirely to me. Not David, not the company that had been in their family for decades. Me. Robert stood up so fast his chair fell over. "This is impossible. She wasn't mentally competent." The lawyer, who had been Eleanor's friend for 40 years, looked at him with disgust. Mrs. Morrison was completely lucid when she changed her will. She specifically mentioned that she was doing so because of what she termed Robert's theft of medical funds meant for my great-granddaughter. Patricia turned on me. You manipulated a dying old woman. You'll never see a penny of that money. But I would. Eleanor had been careful, working with lawyers who specialized in elder law. The will was ironclad. David tried to convince me to share the inheritance with his family. Sarah, I know you're angry, but they're still my parents. This money could help repair our relationship. I looked at my husband, this man who had let his parents steal his daughter's medical fund and was now asking me to give them a reward for it. Our relationship. I repeated. David, they let our baby die. They took the money that could have saved her life and used it to expand their business. And you're asking me to repair our relationship with them. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. I filed for divorce the next day. The inheritance took 6 months to settle while Robert fought it every step of the way. During that time, I learned some interesting things about Morrison Development. See, when you're married to someone for 3 years and you pay attention to family dinners, you pick up information. Information about which projects were fully permitted and which ones had some shortcuts taken. Information about which city officials received generous donations right before zoning approvals came through. Information about environmental reports that were conveniently misfiled. I also learned that Robert had taken more than just Eleanor's money. He'd been using the company's employee pension fund for personal investments. He'd taken out loans against properties owned by elderly clients without their knowledge. The man was running what amounted to a Ponzi scheme with his own family's real estate business. While I was gathering this information, I was also planning what to do with Eleanor's money. I thought about Sarah every day. About the life she could have had, the dreams that died with her. About other families facing the same impossible choice between bankruptcy and watching their child die. I decided to build something that would honor her memory and prevent other families from going through what we had. The Sarah Chen Memorial Shelter and Family Support Center opened 18 months later. It's a comprehensive facility that provides temporary housing for families with children receiving extended medical treatment, financial assistance for medical bills, and legal advocacy for families fighting insurance companies. But before I could build the shelter, I had some unfinished business to take care of. I started with the IRS. $12 million generates a lot of attention, and when you inherit that much money, the government takes a very close look at where it came from. During their investigation into Eleanor's finances, they discovered some interesting discrepancies in Morrison Development's tax filings. Apparently, Robert had been reporting income differently to different agencies. Then I contacted the state licensing board for contractors. I provided them with detailed information about Morrison Development's permitting shortcuts and environmental violations. It took them 8 months to complete their investigation. I also reached out to the Pension Fund Oversight Committee. Eleanor's medical trust fund hadn't been the only account Robert had raided. Company employees who had worked for Morrison Development for decades discovered their retirement savings had been borrowed for real estate investments that happened to benefit Robert personally. Finally, I contacted the local newspaper's investigative reporting team. I provided them with a complete timeline of events, financial records that Eleanor had kept, and hospital bills showing exactly when Sarah's surgery had been scheduled and when it was cancelled due to lack of funds. The story ran on the front page with the headline, "Local Development Company Owner Diverted Dying Baby's Medical Fund for Business Expansion." David called me the morning the article came out. He was crying. "Sarah, please. You're destroying my entire family. My dad could go to prison." "David," I said calmly, "your father chose to destroy his family the day he stole money from his dying granddaughter. I'm just making sure everyone knows what kind of man he really is." "But what about me? I'll lose everything." "You already lost everything that mattered. You just didn't notice." Within 6 months, Morrison Development was bankrupt. Robert was facing federal charges for tax evasion and pension fund fraud. Patricia filed for divorce and moved to Florida to live with her sister. The family's reputation in our close-knit community was obliterated. David lost his job when the company folded. Last I heard, he was working at a car dealership in the next town over, trying to rebuild his life under his mother's maiden name. The Sarah Chen Memorial Shelter has now helped over 300 families avoid the choice that we faced. We've prevented medical bankruptcies, kept families together during crisis, and saved the lives of children whose parents couldn't afford their medical care. But the victory that means the most to me happened just last month. A young mother named Maria came to the shelter with her 6-year-old son Carlos, who needed emergency heart surgery. She was undocumented, terrified, and had been turned away from every other assistance program she'd tried. I sat with her in my office while she cried and told me about how she'd sold everything she owned and was still $70,000 short of what the hospital required upfront. "We'll cover it," I told her. She stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "All of it. All of it. Carlos is going to have his surgery next week." That night, I stayed late at the shelter, sitting in the quiet lobby and thinking about Sarah. I imagined her as a 6-year-old running around and causing trouble like Carlos would soon be able to do. I thought about the Morrison family, scattered and disgraced, probably still believing they were the victims in all of this. And I thought about Eleanor, who had given me the power to turn our tragedy into something meaningful. Sometimes people ask me if I feel guilty about destroying David's family. The answer is no. I didn't destroy them, I simply revealed who they really were. They destroyed themselves the moment they decided that money was more important than an innocent child's life. The Sarah Chen Memorial Shelter stands as a monument to a different kind of family values, the kind where you fight for the vulnerable instead of abandoning them, where you sacrifice for love instead of sacrificing love for money. 3 years later, I can finally sleep through the night. Not because the pain of losing Sarah has faded, it never will, but because I know that her short life had meaning. Every child who receives medical care because of the shelter, every family who stays together instead of falling apart under financial pressure, every parent who doesn't have to choose between their child's life and bankruptcy, they're all part of Sarah's legacy. And that legacy is worth more than all of Robert Morrison's stolen money combined. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing to Revenge Chronicles. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful stories of people who refuse to stay silent in the face of injustice. Thank you for staying with me through this difficult journey. I know it wasn't easy to hear, but sometimes the hardest stories are the ones that need to be told. If you'd like to see more stories about people who transformed their pain into purpose, there are plenty more waiting for you here on our channel.